This Duke football season is just way too much fun. Yet again, the Blue Devils playing a primetime game on ABC, taking on Florida State, a big-time matchup for Duke football. We'll talk about that on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils.
Hi, everybody. Dick Vitale. Hey, make sure you listen, man, to Locked On Blue Devils with J.J. Jackson. He's awesome, baby.
You are Locked On Blue Devils, your daily podcast on the Duke Blue Devils, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. My name is JJ Jackson. It's so great to have you here with us on this Wednesday, October 18th, 2023. Excited to be talking about everything going on in the life of Duke athletics. That's exactly what Locked On Blue Devils is. If you have not done so already, please be sure to follow and subscribe to our podcast for free wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a 5-star rating and written review. Also, be sure to watch the show daily on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. It means a lot when you do that. Follow us on Twitter at LO_Blue Devils. And follow me on Twitter at _JJ_Jackson_. Without further ado, let me bring on my good friend, the aforementioned Josh Cox from Duke Football Talk's Section 17 podcast, back with us as he is every week, and exciting to talk about a 5-1 football team. Josh, how are you, my friend?
It was a great weekend, wasn't it? Beating an in-state rival, NC State coming to Wallace Wade and leaving, only scoring 3 points. And I'm sure we'll talk a lot about that. And then this week coming up, I mean, not only do you have the football team, going to Doak Campbell Stadium, Florida State, as you mentioned, but you've got the basketball team countdown to craziness on Friday night. It's just an exciting week for Duke athletics, for sure.
We certainly haven't forgotten about countdown to craziness. But I was worried that you, my friend, and the Section 17 guys were a little so consumed, and rightfully so, with this great football start. I was worried it was going to sneak up on you. And here you are. You seem ready for it on Friday.
Yeah, I mean, the basketball program does such a good job of putting out just enough content to really, really get you, you can't help but be ready. And I know the Caleb Foster hype right now is really big, especially after that last video that came out. It's going to be a lot of fun. Duke basketball is great. I'm going to be able to be in the house for several games this year. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I know we'll talk a lot about that. But you're right. I mean, Duke football sits here with only one loss, with no ACC losses, with literally their destiny is in their hands, complete control of their destiny. And so, yeah, it's definitely it's definitely two major parts of my life coming together at the same time, for sure.
Best time of year, that's for sure. So let's talk about this football game that just happened. Duke beats NC State by a score of 24-3. Sort of a fill in the blank for you. The most impressive part of Duke football's performance was blank.
Well, I mean, to say it very generically, it was the defense. But if I were to say a specific thing, it would be that NC State scored one field goal. That field goal was a 57-yard bomb, and it came on a drive that went negative yardage. The only points that were scored in the game.
And it came 90 seconds into the game.
And nothing else.
Yeah.
Nothing else. The defense, JJ, was so good that Kevin Johns called one pass play in the second half. One pass play the entire second half. Duke literally, I believe, went into halftime and said, if we don't screw this up, we don't have to do another thing on offense. We're going to win this game. They didn't put Henry Belin in any difficult situations after that first drive. I thought he managed the game well, but that defense was just crazy.
I think that's the right takeaway, is just that defensive performance. We did want to spend a lot of time talking about that quarterback situation because it's what we spent that whole week kind of leading up to the game talking about was, okay, who is going to be quarterback? Is it going to be Riley Leonard coming back from injury, or will Henry Belin get this opportunity? And yet we walk away yet again still talking about this defense. This defense so good, just one of 5 teams in the country allowing fewer than 10 points per game as an entire unit. I can't figure it out, man. I mean, at the start of the year, I'm telling you, hey, don't get used to just giving up 7 points. Like, teams will score on you throughout the season. I might have been wrong, man. I might have been really wrong.
Well, it's crazy. I mean, certainly Florida State presents a different challenge, right, that we'll get to. But you're right. If you look back on these games, and I mean, I don't want to be this guy, but one of the touchdowns in the Northwestern game was under a minute to go, and it was literally, and I'm not meaning this in any derogatory way, it was a garbage time touchdown. I mean, that just all it is. So, like, I mean, you take that away, and the number drops even more. You know,
the UConn touchdown was like, wasn't there 12 seconds or like
that one as well.
The game, yeah.
So I'm not playing that what if game because the game is played the way it is. I do believe, and I'm cool with this. I do believe Duke took that timeout late in the NC State game because NC State was moving the ball down the field, kind of in a garbage time and the momentum. And I think Duke took a timeout real quick and said, "Look, we're not going to give up a touchdown. Like we're gonna preserve this." And I'm glad they did. So 24-3 sounds much better than 24-10.
What did you think of Henry Beelin's performance?
Yeah, so a couple of things. Obviously, that first possession was a little bit difficult. Henry had to get his feet under him. That route, Coach Elko Monday in his presser mentioned that Jomo cut the route off because of what he saw. Henry was going off the fact that when they snapped the ball, State was not set yet. So Henry's just like, it's going to be a full go. And then it ended up not being. And so, Coach Elko was like, I don't know who I give that to. I don't necessarily blame the wide receiver or the quarterback on that. But here's my thing. I just wish you'd have thrown it out of bounds. If he wasn't sure, just throw that thing out of bounds. And that's what JJ, that's what I think. His numbers being 4 for 12. You had the interception. That was one of the incompletions. He did throw the ball away 3 or 4 other times. Like he was under pressure or he didn't have anything, threw it out of bounds. So really his accuracy was not terrible. He had 2 drops. I mean, one drop like in the chest of someone on a slant, another drop on a deep ball. And so like, I actually think his accuracy was pretty decent. He didn't make, other than the first drive, didn't make mistakes. He ran the ball well. I mean, I guess overarching, what Duke could take from a 30,000-foot view is God forbid that Riley has to miss any more time. But if he does, I think Duke has a lot of trust in what Henry can bring to the table.
Yeah, just the one interception. Again, the completion percentage, not great after we saw him earlier this season going 8 for 8. So kind of the exact opposite. Not the greatest numbers there. But then as we've talked about a little bit already this week, first pass attempt of the game happens to be that interception. And in that moment, it's, oh no, what, kind of, you hate to get negative right out of the gates, but when the first pass attempt ends up in the other team's hands, it was a little worrisome for what the game could have been. But he turned
no
it
question.
on when needed to. Yeah.
Yeah, no question. I mean, when that happened, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, maybe the next drive we went 3 and out. I can't remember. I believe that was the case. And yeah, I mean, there was a little bit of like looking around, like, okay, are we gonna, what's gonna happen here? And I will say this: I believe Henry does an excellent job, like way above average in like his deception. I believe his like snap count cadence with his claps are elite. I think that his RPO is elite. That pump fake on that long pass to Jalen Calhoun,
unbelievable.
I mean, he had that guy biting on that in route so hard. So I love those aspects.
Not overthrow him or underthrow him, like to throw right on the money when you need to make a big time play. Yeah, a lot of impressive things for sure. All right, let's keep talking about it, but we'll take our first time out here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends over at LinkedIn. As we all know, these days, every new potential hire can feel like such a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why I'm telling you, you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. You've got simple tools like screening questions to make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you would like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. You can post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. We move forward here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. JJ Jackson alongside my pal Josh Cox from Duke Football Talks Section 17 podcast. So talking about this game that Duke's getting ready for, a lot of questions still at that quarterback spot. Mike Elko spoke earlier in the week, Josh, so just kind of catch everybody up. A week ago, we're blown away that there is even a remote possibility that Riley Leonard could have been available for that NC State game. What's the pulse right now today on a Wednesday of game week going into a big test on the road?
Yeah, Monday in his presser, none of the local guys asked Coach Elko for an update because I think everyone knew what they were going to get from Coach Elko. But there was a guy there that I didn't recognize. I believe he was a national guy. I'm not sure. But he asked for an update on Riley, and Coach Elko goes, yeah, I have an update on him. He's day-to-day. And everyone started laughing. You're not going to get anything out of Duke. I'll be honest with you. I mean, I and maybe I'm just Mr. Optimism here, but I mean, I think if he had to last Saturday, he was going to take that thing up and go. I believe Duke held him out. He was limping. I get that. He also was running around, jumping, catching footballs pregame as well. So he was doing both. I don't have any inside intel at all. Coach Elko did say day-to-day again. He seemed to be upbeat when he said that and not negative when he said that. All I can tell you is I know there are a lot of people from Fairhope High School in Fairhope, Alabama, from Riley Leonard's hometown that are going to be at that game Saturday. I just have a hard time thinking he's not playing. I have a hard time thinking that.
Yeah, it sounds like we're in a position to see him make his return, which is certainly exciting. I think you immediately, regardless of his health, feel better about the situation because he's got kind of that experience and that sort of thing. So, yeah, hopeful that we could get some good things out of him and whatnot there. What are the concerns, would you say, with Riley Leonard specifically when you've got a big-time game coming up like this?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, you want to look at his health, and you never want to jeopardize. I mean, Riley Leonard's going to play in the NFL. He's going to have a career. He's got money to make for sure. So, obviously, you want to keep that in mind. But with sprains, depending on how it is, I mean, at the end of the day, I think anybody that's even played sports growing up in middle and high school, you understand that, while sprains hurt, depending on the severity of them, you typically can tape up and play on some of those. Now, high ankle sprains are different. I'm not a doctor in any way. I understand that oftentimes people are out 3 to 4 weeks. But remember, Duke did have the bye week in there. So there was an extra week there. I can promise you this. Duke has elite medical help and a medical team. I can promise you that the best of the best treatment is taking place to get him ready. So that's the first thing I'd be concerned about, JJ, would be his personal health. The second thing would be the fact that he hasn't played in 2.5 weeks or however long it's been. The game speed. This Florida State defense is going to be the fastest defense that he's gone against the entire season. So it'll take him a little bit of time potentially to get back in the rhythm of things. Ironically, and I think Riley's a big fan of this too. I'm a big fan of Riley getting hit, on a run early on in the game, and it seems to just kind of loosen him up.
Yeah.
And so, but once again, when you're on that ankle, it's like every time you take a hit, it's like, oh, please don't roll up on this thing, or make sure you go down clean. So those are concerns. And then, at the end of the day, I mean, this is kind of it's the nitpicky thing that people have been saying, but this is going to be another game in Florida State where you're not going to really probably see the deep ball. You're not going to see Riley or Henry if it happens to be Henry, but we're speaking about Riley. You're not going to see him air it out. There's going to be a lot of the short intermediate passes, a lot of running, a lot of creativity probably there. I just think the overall speed of the Florida State defense. I mean, this is nothing against our wide receivers, but our wide receivers are going to struggle to create separation on deep balls. That's just my opinion.
Therefore, it becomes more of a risk if you're trying to air it out with their speed and just okay.
Absolutely, because you've got to get that. I mean, you've got to get the step, at least a step, right? You got to get a step or two on the defender in order to complete those passes. I just see Duke doing a better job, especially with a guy with the skill set of like a Jordan Moore and even Jalen Calhoun. I just see those slant routes and those out routes kind of being a little bit more bread and butter on a game like this. And so, yeah, so those are my concerns for Riley. He won't be able to air it out probably. His health, his personal health, and then just getting back into it. He didn't play last week. He didn't, he's practicing, but who knows at what level is he practicing? Obviously practices are closed, so none of us really know.
Well, let's keep talking about it. We've got things to discuss about this game in particular, the quarterback position and kind of where Duke's at 6 games into the year. And we'll finalize our conversation after one more timeout here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. Locked On Blue Devils is brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. Let me tell you a little bit about the daily fantasy world, because Prize Picks is exactly where I've had the most fun, winning 25 times up to my money this football season with our friends at Prize Picks. You just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projected stats, and then place your entry. You can test your skills this football season in the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. What I also love is the Prize Picks reboot policy. Entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. For NFL and college football top 25 matchups, including this week's Duke versus Florida State game, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half with injury and does not return in the second, that player is rebooted. Prize Picks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with injury insurance. What you can do right now is go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege, use code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege, using code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks is a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. Final few moments here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. JJ Jackson alongside my pal Josh Cox from Duke Football Talks Section 17 podcast. Promote your work, if you will, my friend. Tell people where they can listen to you.
Yeah, for sure. We're on YouTube, and then anywhere you consume podcasts, just search Section 17 podcast. We'll be there. DukeFootballTalk.com is our website, and then at Duke FB Talk, pretty much anywhere on social media. And so we've had a lot of fun. We actually had some fun going back and forth with your friends at Locked On Wolfpack this past week after they made some pretty outlandish statements after the loss. They were definitely not gracious losers over there, and so we had to go back and forth with them. All in good fun, of course. But yeah, we enjoy what we do. We cover Duke football and try to give an in-depth look at the program from a fan's perspective.
All right, so looking at this program, looking at where Duke is at halfway through the season, a 5-1 record, 6 games left. If you're watching us on YouTube, we've got the schedule scrolling across the bottom of the screen. Massive test at Florida State, and certainly don't want to overlook that. But knowing this Duke team is not at 100% health right now, and unfortunately already had the bye week kind of pass them by, and whatnot. Where is Duke at in this point of the season, Josh? When you're looking kind of big picture, the games to come, optimism level, incredible to be at 5-1. But is there reason to kind of hold on to that hope for what this team could ultimately finish and do? A lot of people watching those ACC standings each and every week. Like, where are we at this point of the season?
Well, I mean, first of all, we control our destiny, as I mentioned earlier. And so that's a good place to be at. Number 2, other than Eli Pankel, no injury that we know of has been a season-ending injury for Duke. And so anything that they faced on the injury front has been a 1 week at a time, week by week, day by day type of injury. And so I think that's a positive. This is a gauntlet of a schedule right now. Obviously Wake is not what Wake has been the last few years. But you have Florida State, you go to Louisville, and then you go to UNC. I mean, those are 3 very difficult games, and with the Wake Forest Thursday night home game in between there. But Duke controls their destiny. And at the end of the day, does a loss of Florida State kill their chances? Absolutely not. It's 1 ACC loss. Doesn't kill their chances. So, I mean, that's my kind of season wrap up is that whenever you are in the end of October and you control your destiny for the ACC championship game, you're in a good spot. And like I said, with injuries other than Eli, knock on wood, no one else, none of their injuries have been like season ending or even prolonged. It's been like they've been out a week, maybe two, and they're back. So I think overall Duke's in a really good spot.
What else do we need to know about Florida State? Big game this weekend.
Yeah.
You're also making the trip down to Tallahassee.
Yep.
Big atmosphere. Have never beat Florida State in football. 0-19 all time. Like, what else do we need to know, Josh? What's it going to take to win this one?
Well, you have your classic. I mean, this is an incredible offense for Florida State. They have some massive receivers that are very athletic as well. I mean, just freak athletes, really. Tight end position. I mean, I watched a little bit of their game last week, and I forget the guy's name. One of their tight end was he was ridiculous, man. So they're really good. They've scored over 30 points. And Brian could tell you on our podcast, I forget the exact number of games. They've scored over 30 points in like X number of games. So like, then you have Duke's defense. And I want to give a shout out to Duke's defense because, as you mentioned, they're not giving up points. They're in the top 5 in the country in scoring defense. Brandon Johnson, Miles Jones, Al Blades, go down the list, man. Like, these guys have been absolutely incredible. I loved Brandon Johnson this past week in the NC State game. There's a lot of personal stuff there. He was heavily recruited by both programs, all this kind of stuff. They went at him 2 different times in a row on a drive, and he had 2 PBUs. And then on 3rd down or 4th down, they bring him on the blitz, and he gets the sack at the quarterback. So, it was the Brandon Johnson drive, right? So, our defense, I believe, at Duke is really good, but Florida State's offense is also really good. So, who's going to win? Who's going to win out there? And then I believe on the defensive front, it's a matter of, can Kevin Johns get the scheme needed to move the ball against a very athletic defense? I believe Notre Dame's defense was very athletic as well. Honestly, kind of breaking the mold a little bit of like the Notre Dame. You think of kind of big but kind of slow sometimes when you think of Notre Dame. This year's Notre Dame team was fast as lightning. So, I think Duke has seen it. I think Florida State's a little quicker, but maybe not quite as bulky and strong. I don't know. But what we did see in the Notre Dame game, and I think what Duke's going to have to do, is a heavy dose of Jordan Waters finding some seams, getting downhill. So, all in all, it's going to be a great game. And listen, don't get me wrong. All due respect to Florida State, this game they could come in firing on all cylinders, guns blazing. It's homecoming. It's a 7:30 primetime game. They could come in and absolutely destroy Duke. They could. But I believe if you look at the character of this Duke team, it hasn't happened yet this year. That defense is good. And so I don't think it will happen that way, but I have a lot of respect for Mike Norvell and for Jordan Travis and go down that entire roster. So,
yeah, big-time game coming up. Keon Coleman makes a lot of big-time plays at that wide receiver position as well. I mean, they're loaded.
I learned this today. He also returns punts.
Right.
I mean, my man is he's massive. He's athletic. And I heard Mike Norvell on Eric McLean and Kelly Grimlich's podcast say, I mean, he's that good. So we want to get him a few more touches a game. So why not put him back there?
I love that.
So, yeah. I mean, just in case you didn't see enough of that guy on offense, you get to see him in punt returns. So.
Coleman started his career at Michigan State. Now he's terrorizing ACC defenses. So we'll see what happens this upcoming Saturday there at Wallace Wade. As you mentioned at the top, Friday night, got big things happening. Countdown to craziness. First real look at this 2023-2024 team. Beyond the kind of practice and exhibition, scrimmage, whatever you want to call it, itself. Massive recruiting weekend for Duke men's basketball.
Yes.
The top player in the country, Cooper Flagg, will be in attendance. Can you give a sales pitch to Cooper Flagg for us, Josh? What does he need to walk away knowing?
Listen, as a Duke football fan, let me just say this. Cooper, you were at UConn. Your official visit weekend was the weekend that Duke football came up there and absolutely annihilated the UConn Huskies. And so I know that really doesn't play into it. But no, I mean, at the end of the day, Cooper Flagg, his family, they've been Duke fans for a long time. I think that, and this is with all due respect. I mean, y'all know we're Danny Hurley, like we're Hurley family fans.
Oh, yeah.
Like I have UConn's been incredible. I mean, they've won a couple of titles here recently. They've also missed the tournament quite a bit as well, so it's kind of feast or famine. But I just believe that Cooper Flagg has an opportunity to be a Zion Williamson type player in college. And I really do feel like there is not a better place in the country to go to get your name out there, your brand out there. You're going to be on national television every single game. That social media team is going to do everything in their power to get you the publicity that you need. And look, let's face it, with NIL the way it is right now, he'd probably be the most valuable NIL basketball player. I mean, for the performance on the court. Nothing against like a Bronny James. I know that they have different ways of value, but as far as like on the court value. So I mean, you know, you get to be a part of the Duke UNC rivalry. You get the Duke Arizona going to Arizona next year. There's a lot of good positive things that come of this. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't fault him if he did wind up at UConn. They have a great program, but you can't beat the experience that you get at Duke.
Yeah, come join the brotherhood. That's for sure. Make it happen. Let's have a big weekend. Josh.
And hopefully your boy Jaden Shute shows out, you know? Count the craziness.
He's been making things happen.
Listen,
I'm glad people can
this
see it
isn't
now.
the basketball podcast, but JJ, how is Coach Shire? How is he going to get minutes to people, man?
It's insane. I don't know. They're way too
It's
many
almost got to
people.
be like the 5 in, 5 out. Like, I mean, it's going to be crazy. It's a great problem to have. And I know we're going to talk a whole lot more about
Plenty
basketball
about
later,
it.
so.
Yeah, I love it. We'll see you soon, Josh. Thanks for the time today.
Have a great week, JJ. We'll see you.
All right.
Man.
That's Josh Cox, Duke Football Talk, Section 17 podcast. Follow them at Duke FB Talk on Twitter, at Joshua Cox on Twitter as well. That's going to do it for our show here today. Plenty more basketball and football conversations on the horizon for you. Leave us a 5-star rating and written review wherever you get your podcasts. That'll do it for today's show. As always, go Duke. I'll talk to you tomorrow. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you and good day.